Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for August 18th, 2020. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, if Bob Tinneberry, if you could open us up in prayer.
Okay, shall we pray? Father God, we are so thankful that we are able to come together and meet to discuss the business of our day and of our time. I pray, Father, for the decision makers that you would give them your wisdom. I pray for our nation as we continue to suffer from this virus that has hit us. We just pray for healing, and we pray that your hand would be upon each members of the nation, that we would recover not only physically but emotionally. Father, we now commit this meeting to you. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay. 2 would be approval of the agenda. We're looking to move 8F. I talked to the engineers today. They are not quite ready. There's a little bit more work to do, and it might be some good news with a different route they're looking at taking, so there might not be additional funds possibly. So definitely next meeting for sure. And if something changes in between where we don't need extra money, then it would be something that it doesn't need to go back for. So I'd like to approve the agenda with 8F removed.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the one item removed.
Second.
Support.
Okay, motion supported by Ms. Janizak. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll?
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Janizak?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner is not here. Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Perrone?
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Item 3, the consent agenda. The agenda committee recommends to A, approve and place on file the minutes of the August 11th, 2020 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, accept and place on file the general savings, pool funds, and CD reports from the treasurer. C, approve and place on file the revenue, expense report, and balance sheet for the period ending July 31st, 2020.
Move we approve the consent agenda. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. You kept breaking up. Are you talking about the agenda or the consent?
Consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, Ms. Hirschberger?
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Janizak?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Perrone?
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. We have no presentations. Number 5 would be public comment. Comments limited to 2 minutes for board agenda items only, but we actually have a special guest on the phone with us today, Dr. Kojo Corte from the Monroe County Community College. He's the president, and he's going to give us a little update, and you can go ahead and start whenever, and then after that, George will submit some public comments.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Supervisor Perrone. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
All right. Very good. So let me begin by saying thank you for this opportunity, and also the fact that you do create a beginning of your meetings. I don't think all the townships do that, and I've been to quite a few of those meetings. But let me again thank you, Paul and Al, for having me on your show a couple of weeks ago to talk about the MCCC and some of the challenges we're having in our world today, especially as it has to do with race. And so there are 3 issues I want to talk about today, and I know you're giving me a little more than 2 minutes, and I appreciate that. And so the first item I want to talk about is addressing some of the challenges that we're having in this world today. And my message is one of healing and reconciliation. we hear all the time, these are unprecedented times, and that's sort of cliche. But they are unprecedented times in our history, where we have actually two pandemics, the COVID-19, and then there's the pandemic of racism. And they both have no vaccines at this point. And if there's ever a time in our history that we need to come together as a people, it is now. Our community and our people need us now more than ever. And this COVID-19, this invisible enemy is unrelenting in terms of its impact on individuals, regardless of color, regardless of political affiliation. So we need to stand together. Right is right, and wrong is wrong. And I say this in all my speeches, even before the death of George Floyd. I was calling for all organizations to come forward and issue a statement condemning racism and embracing social equity and justice. And so I want to ask this board, and I talked to Paul and Al about this too, is in terms of leadership, silence is not an option, and sometimes silence is complicity. So I want to ask this board to issue a statement, as many have done. Our board did it at the college. The ISD board has done it, issued a statement condemning racism and just simply saying it is wrong and we will not tolerate it. If we want to get to the point of healing our people and our nation. And the United Way board, as I said, did that, and several other organizations have done that. And so this is something that we have been pushing for as part of this new coalition that we formed. And some of you have been on those calls with us, those Zoom meetings with us. It's called CREED, the Coalition for Racial Equality, Equity, and Diversity. And so we're having a series of conversations, honest conversations about race. And we all know that we all belong to just one race, and that's the human race. So how do we come together? How do we heal this nation? And I think it begins with a statement condemning racism and embracing social equity. So that's my first ask of you. The second has to do with the census, and it appears that Bedford is the number is somewhere in the middle in terms of the percentages who have responded. And so we'll get you some more information as to how you get people to respond, because for every individual who's not counted, our county loses $1,800. So we'll get you information on that also. And then the third is about Monroe County Community College and the Whitman Center. You may have heard me say, I think the last time I came to your meeting, that we were going to hire a full-time individual for the Whitman Center. But this was before COVID-19, before our budget freeze and our budget frost, and before we were deprived of funding by the state. And so at this point, we've put that on hold, but we will have individuals who are stationed there at the Whitman Center. We will have our Dean of Business there. And you think about what we do in this county, and this is our county here. You take UT just down the road from you. They charge $439 in state per class, per credit hour. We charge $418 for 3 credit hours. So they're more than 3 times what we charge. And we're saying, have the kids start here in our county where we pay taxes, and they can go anywhere. And so in terms of the Whitman Center, as I complete, the garage roof is that's completed. We're doing some painting, roof restoration in progress. That's $160,000 worth. That's in progress. Single-use restrooms. That's also in progress. And then many other technological changes, access control, electronic networks, all that's ongoing at the Whitman Center. We have a commitment to South County as a college, and we'll keep going. And so this November, we will be seeking a renewal, not a new millage, but a renewal of our current millage. And with that renewal, once we get that renewal, there'll be additional funds that'll be put into the Whitman Center. As you know, here on the main campus, we have a geothermal system. We will have a $1.5 million geothermal system at the Whitman Center. And then we'll have a $2 to $3 million technology upgrade at the Whitman Center, as well as other upgrades that have to do with wireless infrastructure, millions of dollars to be plugged into the Whitman Center as we make it a much more viable place for South County residents and individuals who choose to come this way from Toledo. So those are my three asks. A statement from your Board of Trustees, as my board did, essentially saying that racism is wrong, we condemn it, and any forms of bigotry or discrimination, and essentially embracing social justice and social equity. Then the second is to get all your people counted for the census, and then the third is to support the Whitman Center and Monroe County Community College. So those are my statements, and again, thank you, Supervisor Peroni and board members, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Kojo. It's always good to hear from you. I've enjoyed being on the Zoom meetings with you and, learning more about some of these subjects. So we appreciate you, and we will surely hear from you soon.
All right. Thank you very much.
Have a great Okay. Go ahead and state your name and address. Hello, go ahead and state your name and address. Hello, go ahead and state your name and address.
This is Lamar Frederick, 3254 Deer Creek Drive. I'm here. This is Lamar Frederick, 3254 Deer Creek Drive. I'm here to talk about the roundabout. The roundabout initially was brought to the table by the township in November of 2017. It's almost 3 years old now. The CMAQ grant was based on the early design of the roundabout, which was later determined to be not acceptable for the intersection. So a new design, starting over from scratch, was commenced, and attendant estimation of costs were put forward. According to conversations with the Road Commission, 6 or 7 iterations, each leading to an increased cost, were delivered to the Road Commission for review. One of them was at about $1.3 million, more or less. Now, the Road Commission has clearly stated on numerous occasions their contribution to this roundabout was fixed at $175,000. And due to unclear future revenues, they didn't seem to me in my review of the documents and the minutes, they weren't interested in the Manikin-Smith 7 alternatives. The township has already spent in excess of $140,000 on the Michigan Bar purchase, and the costs are not final yet. Randy Pierce told me yesterday the engineering and documents are not even completed on the current project, and that some work is yet to be done. That tells me that a bid package still cannot be prepared and set out for bid. I also read in some documentation the Road Commission will require Bedford to guarantee any costs greater than the agreed contributions, and any amount if the project goes forward that is greater than the agreed contributions. And the minutes of the last meeting with the township reps did not appear to result in any alternative solutions to the cost fix. Now, the township supervisor with the engineers has been trying to dummy down the project to the point that the Road Commission, at least as I heard yesterday, is not happy with the result. the Road Commission recommends the project be scrapped and await the new cycle for the CMAQ grant, which might go a little further in covering the cost of the project. Lastly, I still don't like using a water slush fund to pay the cost of relocating a water line in this project. Because if there's water slush funds around, why don't you reduce the water rates for the Bedford citizens and keep the government transparent? And also, I guess the supervisor needs a course in Dale Carnegie on how to win friends and influence people. And so with that, I say thank you very much, and I will hang up, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you for your comments, Henry. Okay, next caller. Go ahead and state your name and address, please. Thank you for your comments, Henry. Okay, next caller.
Hi, this is Gail Kane.
Go ahead and state your name and address, please.
Hi, this is Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. I would like to see the minutes reflect under the supervisor section who the crew is. I believe the public needs to know that this is union apprentices that are coming in here when we still have union people on layoff. I think we should have more full disclosure on park issues. The last I knew, those people are duly elected, and our supervisors should not be usurping their authority. On the roundabout, this lady says enough. I took Lamar's advice and reviewed the meeting held. The supervisor acted in a deplorable and unprofessional manner, and from all notes, it's apparent that this is all on him for the most part, except for the legal and engineers. There was no board involvement. The lights at the library. I'd like to have that clarified. I thought we've been there, done that how many times over now? And as far as the water under the tracks, I find it funny that I filed for a FOIA and suddenly we're wanting to have a discussion on this matter. So I don't know where the skunk is in the woodpile, but I think I know where the skunk is. I'm going to hang on and watch the rest of this meeting and hope it comes out better than they have lately. Thank you.
Sounds good. Have a great night. Any more public comments, George? Okay. Okay, moving on to staff reports. Approval, 6A, approval to transition a seasonal temporary administrative assistant to part-time administrative assistant in the fire department. Chief Massingill.
Good evening. So this has been a part of a phased and planned approach. When we started working towards semi-retirement for Captain Dale, as he indicated, he was hoping to take more and more time off. So back in February, we interviewed and brought in a seasonal temporary administrative assistant. At that time, we were informed that within 6 months, we had to bring it to the board for board action. It couldn't go on indefinitely, nor was it our intention. Being that we've just reached the 6-month mark, we're bringing it forward to the board for review and some action on the matter. So I think the request pretty much outlines our needs, the rate that we're looking for, the maximum amount of hours, and what we plan to do moving forward. So,
Okay. Comments for Chief? Questions? Anybody have any comments or questions, Chief? Okay, seeing none, I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make a motion that this board approve the budgeted request to move Heather Kip Broadway from seasonal temporary administrative assistant to part-time administrative assistant at a rate of pay of $18.50 per hour with a maximum work week not to exceed 30 hours as per those requests.
Did I hear support?
Support.
Okay. Motion and supported by Ms. Tinneberry. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry,
Aye.
Ms. Janusik,
Aye.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Item 8B. Have a good night, Keith. I'm sorry, item 6B, approval of a resolution to amend the 2020-2021 general fund budget. Ms. Hirschberger?
There was an error on the cover memo. It's not a capital improvement, it's just a capital fund, just so everyone knows. But I am asking for the amount of 6,500 increased in elections so that I can purchase the high-speed tabulator later on in the agenda, but I wanted to amend the budget first before I presented the request. But it's all being done in one meeting because I need it soon.
Ms. Hirschberger, how much time will you actually see saved with the high-speed tabulator on the night of an election?
I would have been there probably 2 days with a regular tabulator, maybe 3.
So I mean having the second one, because you already have one, correct?
I have one, probably half the time.
So half the time.
Mm-hmm.
I look for any more discussion or a motion?
I just want to applaud Trudy for making this move. Mike, I do have a question though. You said capital fund. It's in your elections fund, your capital
Yes.
line item, the line
Correct.
item. Okay, that's because I didn't think that there was a, okay. And I'm back to the applause. I work in Ida and we have we only have 4,000 voters total, and it took us till midnight, so, or nearly midnight actually, but I can't imagine what it is like with 20,000 plus voters. So I too believe that Bedford Township needs this, and it saves on hours toward, paying election workers and frustration and a lot of other things. So I will support that motion.
Okay, motion supported by Ms. Tinneberry. Discussion? Any more? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Did I make the motion?
Oh, I thought, well, he said,
Yeah.
okay, I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion.
Okay. I'll second it. How's that?
Okay.
Okay, motion and supported by Ms. Hirschberger. Any more discussion? Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please? I can't say your name too many times in a row. It gets me all goofed up, so.
Ms. Tinneberry.
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni.
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Okay, moving on to new business, item 8A, vouchers for payment. Ms. Hirschberger.
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General fund in the amount of $53,971.14. Fire district, $7,399.56. Police fund, $226.30. Park fund, $2,982.35. Transit system fund, $45. Library fund, $1,811.41. Indian Acres SAD, $1,151.65. Lewiston Estates SAD, $426.75. Stonegate SAD, $194,843.54. Downtown Development Authority, $1,213.05. Sewer O&M Fund, $970.16. Trust and Agency Fund, $827 for a grand total of $265,867.91.
Okay, motion and supported by Ms. Januzak. Discussion? You're muted, Ms. Tinneberry.
And how'd you know I had a question?
I can see it.
I have a question. Was this report formulated by our new finance manager? Or is this?
This report, actually, my department creates this report, but he
I
did all the input. Yes. So
Okay.
the backup input was done by our temporary.
temporary, right? But I mean, you know me, I look over the bills quite a bit, and I thought it was very good, very well done.
Yeah, I'll second that. It was well prepared.
Motion is supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Did you
No,
support
supported by
Mr.
Jan
Clemens?
DeSec.
Oh,
I just said congratulations.
I thought. Okay, motion is supported by Ms. Janusik. Discussion, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Jan DeSec?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Item 8B, approval of a bid for a township HVAC service contract. There's been a contract, or, well, I'm not really sure if we've had a contract in place with our current company that does all this, but it's Rawlings. They've been doing it, performing the work for, gosh, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, roughly 15 years now. So one thing that this board has wanted is to put a lot of stuff out like this for bid, and just so we're competitive and we get the most bang for our buck. You have a couple of bids here. I'm sure the board has taken the time to look over them. We've got everybody knows about Rawlings. I'm not sure if anybody did any background work on the other company. We did make some phone calls. Spoke to the owner, Matt Miller. He's owned it for 18 years. They're union workers. They have people that cover Monroe County. They have dealt with the schools, auto plants, state of Michigan. No complaints with the Better Business Bureau, and their license is current. On the other hand, we have our local company who has performed the work, knows our buildings for 14 plus years, and is interested in the work as well. As you can see from the bids, there's a little bit of a difference with the price. We've got Miller at $85.90 for the 1 year agreement, and Rawlings at $11.08. And then the hourly rate is $105 compared with Rawlings, and an hourly rate at $175 after hours, and then parts markup 25%. And then with Miller, the additional service is $94 an hour, straight times $121, overtime and holidays, and all parts cost plus 12% and a half hour for travel time. So those are your bids. Does anybody have any questions? The main reason for this is we had a lot of work that's performed. You know, and one of the things that I've wanted to do was put out for bid for electrical, mechanical, HVAC. And to be quite honest, our parking lots is something I want to bring next. Parking lots is something we do every year, and this is something we're constantly, so it's nice to have something in place to where if we have something go wrong, we call our person that we have a contract with, they give us a bid, the board approves, we can get it done. You know, we have 1 year contracts, so, you know, next year we could put it out for bid again. You know, we can do it every year, and maybe, you know, attract a bigger crowd. But so, does the board have any questions or comments? Ms. Tinneberry?
Well, I did look into this somewhat. I don't know anything about mechanical anything or these types of bids, but I personally, as a board member, prefer to stay local. I understand that there's a difference in the 1 year service agreement, although Rawlings doesn't say 1 year. So I don't know that that would change after 1 year. I get the feeling that the Sterling Heights company would possibly increase their contract price after 1 year. I would prefer to, you know, not be in a 1 year contract actually. So I favor Rawlings because it is local, and I think that, you know, we say buy Bedford first, and so I believe in that wholeheartedly. If it's at all available in Bedford, I believe that we should make every effort to to support our local people, companies. I do have a question though. What kind of a contract is this? I mean, if for some reason Rawlings, it was an emergency and Rawlings didn't have anyone available, let's say over the Christmas season or something, and people are all gone, are we bound to wait for that, or is it possible to call on another?
If we had an emergency and Rawlings wasn't available, we call another company.
Okay, so the contract's not binding in that regard. Okay, well, that's my preference, is to stay local and support our local business.
Okay. Any other board members have comments, questions?
I should have went and seen, I guess I didn't think about it, to go see where are we at now with Rawlings, like for the, just in the annual. I didn't go pull that. I don't know if anybody knows that offhand, where we're at with Rawlings right now.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Like what we're paying, what we're currently paying, as that, like we're just for the 1 year service agreement.
I believe it's about what we're at right now.
This is where we're at now.
I believe it's pretty close to where we're at for the 1 year, for the service contract every year. I don't know if Ms. Hirschberger can pull it up.
I guess I don't see anything in either of these. I guess the one says a 1 year service agreement, but it doesn't like go into like, does that mean it's going to have to be renewed annually, and or is there an inflation rate built into that as well?
Well, he hasn't raised his prices for the yearly inspection stuff in 14 years. So
yeah, he has.
That consists not for the quarterly stuff that he does.
The current contract, yeah. I pulled the current or like what the contract was from 2008. That's what I'm saying. Where's it at now, comparatively? If that's where it's at now.
As far as the 1 year contract, I mean, if this board goes with Rawlings, I mean, to be quite honest with you, he's been 14 years doing it. If we're going to renew Rawlings' contract rather than going with another company, then there wouldn't be no point in renewing it after a year. He's performed it for 14 years already. You know, we could wait, in my opinion, 5 or 6 years and do it again. You know what you're going to get with Rawlings. Yeah, he's consistent, does a good job, and knows our buildings. So. But I don't know what the rate was in 08. I didn't look. As far as I was understood, he hasn't raised it from what I understood. The annual service contract. I could be wrong. And I am, sounds like so.
And like I said, I don't know if that's, I don't know. I don't see anything it's a 1-pager. So I don't know if there was anything built into that to account for inflation, but it's a significant difference between the 08 annual. So I don't know where that's been at over the last.
Let's focus on what we have today in front of us, because I mean, what he did in 08 really doesn't matter with what we have today. But in a year, if he raises his contract prices, we're going to keep a better eye on it. We could make it a year contract and just redo it in a year. We could redo it every year. That's something this board, I believe, is wanted anyways. Is looking at the contract.
I don't think we should bother making it 1 year. I think that if Rawlings chooses to change his price or increase his price, he would come back and ask to open up the contract. So I don't see any reason to make it 1 year. This other company says 1 year. That's why I'm suspicious that they are only guaranteeing this price for 1 year. And then you got to go through the whole process again.
Mr. Clements?
I was going to point the same thing out, that when I did some initial work trying to verify the contract and what we were currently spending, it appears to be very similar. Traditionally, you would want a contract that allows us a slightly better price in exchange for our commitment for the year, but given that their contract is not stipulating the 1 year, this does give us a potentially prolonged window. And I also echo with Nancy that when two bids are similar and comparable, we have to set the example in supporting local business. That's all.
Any other comments from board members? Ms. Hirschberger?
Craig, the bid that you looked at, was it for, or the price you're looking at, was it for all the buildings? Or was it just for one building? Because this is for all the buildings.
Yeah, it would have just been for the library probably. That's what Craig's talking about. This is for all of them, yeah.
I just wanted to know.
You're muted, Mr. Montclair. You're muted.
Said, you know what? That's possible. That this,
Yeah.
if this is just the library contract, if they were all separated.
They
Yeah,
were separate. That's why I was asking, because this one is for all of the buildings, where the ones you're probably looking at are just one building.
Okay.
good point, Trudy. You're exactly right.
So
So
that's on point. Thank you.
And not to mention, we are talking about several years of inflation potentially as well. Well, unless there's further,
That's what I'm asking about, like for these, is if that's acceptable, if that's built into a contract. If there's, I think something that we, like, even with the recent situations with the county road commission, I think in our contracts, we need to have, and I don't know if you need legal involved in that, but I think there should be penalties for not holding the contracts, but also that's acceptable if it's built into your contract. So that it's acceptable to have a buildup of inflation, but if that's not specified, you can't just arbitrarily go, oh, inflation, and be able to point at that either.
So I think
So
it was
I agree.
the library and Township Hall is what Rawlings did. It was two buildings. So that would have been that price, so. Okay, no further comments. I look for a motion.
I would like to move that we approve the service contract for the HVAC in all of the township buildings with Rawlings Heating and Cooling, 930 Secor Road, Suite B, Temperance, for the amount of $11,800 for the service contract and the hourly rates as presented in their bid.
I'll support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion. I would
Can I
just like
put
to say the time that I've spent with Rawlings in the dealings with them, they're always on time, they're always prompt, and they're, do a very good job, so they know our building, so it's a huge benefit there. So, Mr. Montre?
I just want to put in maybe a friendly amendment, and I don't think it's even like on them, but if there can be something to go above and beyond on these on the quarterly checkups, making sure that whether it's all parties involved or getting some sort of invoicing or whatever, like specifically the library, it's not a question of their work or anything like that, but if a HVAC guy stops in quarterly, does his job, whatever, and leaves, and there's not some communication with whether it's to the library as well as to the township, just I don't even know if that would need to be something very simple, to a simple ask to them to go, if they can go above and beyond, make sure the library gets something, as well as at the township, that there's some invoicing regularly.
No, we can-
That friendly amendment is very confusing, so I would prefer that it would be a friendly request by the supervisor when he signs the contract with Rawlings.
Yeah, we can
Rawlings.
do that. It's not a problem.
I just wanted to say that the other reason that I support the Rawlings is because of the fact that sometimes you need them right away. We have, 9 to 10 buildings here that need to be serviced. And for someone coming all the way from Sterling Heights on a dime, I just think that it's a better service to our people to have somebody local.
Anybody else have any discussion? Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Janzisek?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Item 8C, approval of a bid for a township electrical service contract. Same thing here. We have a lot of electrical things that we deal with on a pretty regular basis. As small as running conduit for the lights for the monument out front for the fire department, and it's tough to put everything out for these small jobs for bid on the website and deal with the bid openings and all that. So this really gives us a solid number. Here's a competitive bid for our whatever, and we can call him, say, hey, here's the job. He gives us a bid, we bring it to the township board, and we can get the job approved if we want to do it or not. So, like I said, we have things that we do on a regular basis. Light ballast goes out. We want to be able to know that we have a competitive bid that we can call somebody. So, anybody have any questions on the two bids in front of us? We have one from Glick Electrical, local company, and then one from Rawlings Heating and Cooling, local company. And I believe John Howard is their electrician that they use. So.
I'll make a motion to approve and accept the Glick Electrical if no one has any other questions or comments.
Comments or discussion? Well, let's get a support on. We have a motion on the floor. I look for support.
I'll give support.
Okay, we have a motion and support on the floor. Discussion. Ms. Hirschberger or Ms. Tinneberry, sorry.
I struggle with this one because Rawlings and John Howard are local. John Howard's been supportive of the BBA for many, many years. He and his wife, and I'm having a struggle because Erie is not really local, but it's pretty much local, and they could be here in quite close to the time that possibly John could. And I guess I just struggle with the $40 an hour difference between Rawlings and the Erie company. But so it's hard. It's hard. I want to use local contractors, but at the same time, we're in the business of spending the taxpayer dollars, and so I'm a little concerned with the extra money. I mean, $40 extra per hour, and if a job takes, 10 hours, that's $400. So I don't know.
Trudy,
It's hard.
Are they still in the township though? I know it's Erie, but I didn't know if that area is still Bedford Township or not.
We don't have any area, I don't think, in Bedford Township.
Right there, you do. It's the same, for real. It's the same thing as on Strasburg. You have
It's on Telegraph
people.
next to Ella's. Al just told me it's Temperance. So I'm not sure where you're getting Erie.
It's
That-
still
their-
Erie. No, that area.
their address is Erie.
It's
The address
Erie,
is
but I
Erie,
think it's
but-
still in our township. I think they're still in our township. It's like I said, it's the same thing as like in Ida. You have like Strasburg. You have addresses that are Temperance addresses, but are in Ida Township. Like that are on that line. There's spots in the township, and that I thought that was one of them. That's still the township, even though it is Erie.
Northtown Meadows is off of Telegraph, and it's got an Erie address, but it's all Bedford.
Mr. Clemens?
Well, regardless of physical address, I agree with what Nancy's saying. I respect the heck out of Rawlings, and they are a local company and do great work. Obviously, I voted for them on the other. But in preparation of the next agenda item, I think it coincides and would make sense for electrical service to go to Glick, and not to tip my hand, but the next quote or request is fairly significant between the two companies. It's not a small number, and I think based on that and the fact that both involve electrical, Glick would certainly get my support in this specific case.
Any more discussion? Comments? Okay, let's call the roll, please.
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry,
Aye.
Ms. Janusik,
Aye.
Ms. Berger votes aye, Mr. Peroni.
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Okay, item 8D, approval of a bid to install and repair and replace lights at the Bedford Branch Library. Mr. Montry, did you want to take this one since you're on the library advisory board, or do you want me to handle it?
I'd much rather have you handle that.
Okay, we have the item that was tabled about a month ago. Put it out for bid for the lights that weren't compatible. Voss Electric came out, swapped the lights out at their expense. They all burn out again and said it's a ballast issue. So these are the two bids we have, and this will be the final stage of getting the whole project done. Originally, this was a project that Voss said we didn't need to do. We could just swap out the lights, and they didn't work with the ballast. So we tried to save us money. So LED lights burned out twice. So now they're saying this is what needs to be done. Ms. Tinberry?
Well, the only thing I know about electricity is flipping the switch. I know how to turn it on, turn it off. But you said ballast, and that's what I heard last time. But I don't see anything on here about ballasts. So if the ballast is the problem, is that something that you replace, or what? I mean, the ballast. We're not going to just put in new lights and not fix this ballast deal, are we?
This is what's going to fix the ballast situation.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know what ballast means.
Just switch the whole unit. They just switched the light bulbs in the beginning, thinking that the LED light bulbs would work in the ballast. So they didn't. They switched them out again and put all brand new LED lights in. They burned them out again. They weren't compatible with the LED. So this is what we have to do now, Mr. Montry.
Wait, what company did that?
That
what
was Voss Electric. We have
Okay.
the bid with, and then Zyler's Electric performed the work.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. Montry?
I also am admittedly not an electrician, Nancy, I want to say that this repair replace, if you look at the Glick proposal, repair replace for 4-foot parabolic fixtures, I believe that is possibly your ballast is what would be like fixing the ballast. I'm not positive though.
You got 4 LED lamps. This is like a ballast lamp, and then you have the 4-foot, 4 foot by 4 foot parabolic fixtures. So
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
Thank you, Ms. Timber.
I'm very,
Is that-
very happy to not be dealing with Voss anymore. And I guess I almost, when I was looking at this, almost kind of got to chalk it up. Kind of, or this is where we'll spend the money we saved on lighting controls. That we'll have to spend it here.
I could tell you this, dealing with Voss was a pain, but in the end, we saved a lot of money dealing with Voss because of the mistakes they made. I could tell you that. We have LED ballast because of the mistake they made. We ended up getting a lot more bang for our buck. It was a pain. It did take a lot longer. And, in the future, obviously, when we do a project, we'll, look elsewhere. But, okay, I look for a motion.
I'd make the motion to accept the proposal from Glick Electric for $3,480.
Support.
Motion is supported by Ms. Tinneberry. Discussion. Ms. Hirschberger, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Montroy,
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry,
Aye.
Mr. Clemens,
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek,
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni.
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Item 8E, approve the purchase of a high-speed tabulator. Ms. Hirschberger.
So I received different quotes here for different equipment, but all I'm interested in is the central scanning absentee voter by mail hardware in the amount of $12,980. I did get money from the state. They're going to pay for half of this, so our cost will end up only being half of the $12,980. We don't even have to pay for it and get reimbursed. They will automatically pay for it. We will only be invoiced for half.
Very cool. Any comments, discussion?
If none,
I
I'd
know
like to make them, go ahead.
I have one. I know you asked if there was any questions, and I didn't notice it or think about it. The annual licenses, is that annual, or is there a way to only do that in election years, or do you know? Do you even know?
I'm not doing that at all because I'm not getting
Okay,
the adjudication software.
You're just doing the hardware. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Very cool. Okay, I look for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the quote from Dominion Voting for a central scanning absent voter by mail hardware in the amount of $12,980, of which the township will only be invoiced for half.
Support.
Motion is supported by Ms. Janizek. Discussion? Seeing none, just call the roll, please.
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Jandisek?
Aye.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye. Passed 6-0.
Okay.
Okay, next item is 8G, decision on how to proceed with the Jackman Road, Smith Road roundabout. I'm going to have Mr. Bushman and Mr. Goldsmith kind of. Did you guys?
Okay.
A lot of chatter here. A lot of opinions and a lot of people's thoughts on this. A lot of people said, hey, why don't you just straighten the roads out? Why don't you look into doing some, so I've talked to engineers about that. So Mr. Bushman's going to kind of explain the difficulties of doing that. You people have looked at the transcripts. You can look at them how you want, but this township supervisor fought in that meeting to get a different result. And that's what I did. I didn't go to the meeting in Countel and sit there and, I fought for the township to get a better result. So whoever wants to start to kind of let us know where we're at. Obviously, Barry, you are extremely intimately involved in this project and have been since the beginning. So go ahead. And I would just, you're muted, Mr. Goldsmith. And I just wanted to address, too.
Are we muted? Or no? Okay,
Mr. Goldsmith was muted.
okay.
I have talked to Randy Pierce myself, and in the end, if the township spent 140,000 and the road commission spent 40,000, Mr. Pierce has said in the end, they've budgeted 175, we budgeted 175. In the end, we'll go out even. So we'll have a piece of property that's cleaned up and ready to go if we proceed in 2023. So go ahead, Mr. Bushman.
Sure. Well, in brief summary, this project was conceived in 2018 by the Road Commission. Typically, the Road Commission prepares estimates and applications on various what they call CMAQ applications for MDOT and through SIMCOG. This was one of them. They actually were awarded 2 projects this year, last year actually, for construction this year, which was one of them was a bike lane up on in Frenchtown and this roundabout for Bedford Township. As part of their application, they're required to provide a preliminary engineer's estimate of cost. The estimate they had in their application was $597,000. That is the estimate for the total construction. The good part about a CMAQ grant is that it is a 100% qualified application, which means essentially 0% by the township or road commission. So anyways, long story short, after we did our very first preliminary engineering estimate, and that was in September of 18, our first estimate was $850,000. And so we called a meeting at the township and at that meeting, there was a lot of discussion. At that point in time, we identified all the different things, including the purchase of the land, the demolition of the project, the engineering costs, and we were asked to try to figure out how to get the construction costs down to $700,000. And that's how the original 175 match was split between the road commission and the township. So anyways, we proceeded. Originally, we had more of what we would have called a dog bone type of configuration. Later, we then, in an effort to save costs, tried to move it to a more traditional roundabout. At that point, we did, we've modified the plans a few times to try to reduce cost. I could go over the various details of what we did, but I think at this point, it's sufficient to say that, our estimate for actual construction without water line relocation or sewer was still around $770,000 for the construction plus water line and sewer. So obviously we have a shortfalling of the cost, and that's led to a lot of discussion, both with the road commission and township, of whether we go ahead and try to figure if we make it up with a 50-50 match or not. And the road commission has clearly made their intentions known on it. I think we've got a good set of plans that we can put on the shelf. They're about 99% complete. All the easements have been drafted. All the special provisions have been drafted. All the last thing we do is have a final review of the plans with the road commission. But beyond that, it could be shelved very easily for a new application. And unfortunately, CMAQ applications only come around every 3 years. That's why it's not a yearly application. So we'd have to wait until really 2023 to file again. It's one of those situations where, in my opinion, we started out behind the 8 ball with an engineer's estimate back by the road commission in early 18, when the road commission filed for this, of under $600,000, and it's really a $850,000 project. So it's unfortunate. We've done a lot in cooperation with both the road commission and the township to try to keep the cost down there, but that's the typical cost of a roundabout, and there's not much else we could do. There's just no more place to cut corners. So having said that, and like I said, the road commission looked at the fact that they had $175,000 committed and they are not prepared to offer any additional monies. It's been stated previously, you could go, when we put this out for estimate, if it goes up to 10% over, the state clearly does still award the project. If it goes over 10%, you're allowed to kind of pull back and either rebid or not have the project. So anyways, it does put a lot of exposure on behalf of the township. And if the road commission is not willing to provide any additional funding, and I understand their shortcomings also with some of the crisis with the pandemic we've had and their shortfallings, it does place a significant burden on the township and a potential significant cost. So, at this point, my recommendation, quite honestly, would be to probably shelve the plans and reapply with an amount that would be more appropriate, which would probably be close to $875,000 or $900,000, where we could actually add some of the lighting back in and include some of the amenities that we had to essentially delete as part of our efforts to save costs. So, and if we could gain that application and win that back in, it is a competitive application, and but I think we'd be in a great position to have that awarded again 2023 with more of an $875,000 to $900,000 application. And given it's 100% application, that would be no additional construction cost to the township. The only thing you'd really have is some engineering costs for construction and layout, and you pretty much, we could probably even include the water line work in that application. So quite honestly, as much as I'd love to see the project go forward, and we put forth a tremendous amount of effort to get it to the point it is, I just can't see the township paying that extra cost. And we have a really good opportunity to get more funding in the future. Briefly, to realign it or turn it into something other than a roundabout, you'd have a lot more engineering costs. You'd have to start over. But in another life, when I was at the road commission about 35 plus years ago, I had actually had that alignment with a curve through Jackman Road. And by the time you reconfigure that, and you have to have a single point intersection with a single point signalization, the geometry along Smith Road would require additional right-of-way purchase both east and west, predominantly on the west. And really, that doesn't follow the lines of the CMAQ application, which is congestion mitigation air quality, which promotes continued circulation of vehicles, no stop starts, safety issues and the like. So there's a good chance that type of application would not even qualify under a CMAQ grant. So I guess my recommendation would be to the township would be to shelve the plans. We coordinate that with the road commission and apply again in 3 years. And in the meantime, as Mr. Peroni said, the road commission was willing to do some additional work to help clean up the intersection, which was going to be part of the project. And so we don't have kind of the mess that's still out there on the old bar site, and go forward. So with that, I'm certainly open to any questions you might have, or if Phil has any supplemental information he wants to convey to the board, I'd be glad to, like I said, answer any questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'll just focus in on the meetings that I attended at the Road Commission on behalf of Bedford Township. The first meeting, I was there with representatives from the township. Krista was there, Craig was there, and Paul was there. And Barry was there as well. And the purpose of that meeting was to present Barry Bushman's what I'll call 7 suggestions as to how the plan could go forward. And what it did was ask the Road Commission to continue its partnership on an equal basis with the township, and 7 separate suggestions were made as to how that could happen. Through the course of that meeting, which was spirited, and we were there to advocate on behalf of the township, and we did that. When it all boiled down, what it all boiled down to was essentially the road commission wanted a request in writing from me on behalf of the township, which I did, with 2 options. And I presented those 2 options, one of which was asking the road commission for an in-kind contribution of engineering services for the project as it was being constructed. That was a proposal made on behalf of the township by Mr. Bushman. Another option was to have both the township and the road commission agree to apply certain money that we would ordinarily receive as a township for road maintenance, repair, reconstruction for that particular year. I put that in writing, and then I went back to the next road commission meeting on July 27th. The road commissioners allowed me to make the presentation orally. And as I set forth in my correspondence to you, the board dated July 29th, the road commission at that meeting made it clear, Greg Stewart chaired the meeting, made it clear that they would not contribute more than $175,000 for this project. So that being their decision, I authored this July 29, 2020 correspondence to you to advise you of that. And then also to advise you, and you were already aware of this, I think, that if we went forward, we would have to pay the total cost overrun over and above that 350, which is the 175 contributed by each of the township and the road commission, and provide some assurance to the road commission that any cost overruns would be borne by the township. So, and there's a risk in that. Mr. Bushman already touched upon that, because once the project is submitted by the road commission, because these are county roads and it has to be submitted to MDOT by the road commission, if the bids came back, when they solicit bids from contractors to perform the work, if the bids came back within that 10% overage range, the project would be awarded, as Barry said, and then we, the township, would be responsible for whatever that cost would be. So in my letter, I think you can see that after my discussions, and I had other discussions too with Mr. Londo, Mr. Stewart, and with Randy in between and after these meetings. And, you know, one of the things that Randy told me, now he's retiring, he announced his retirement, but one of the things he told me, I think in good faith, was that if we wait for the next CMAQ grant cycle, which is in 2023, as Barry explained, Randy thought, based on his experience, that we would be first in line. We would come in with a more realistic cost estimate, as Barry just explained, because our engineering is essentially done. I think Barry has some very minor work to finish that up, and the land acquisition is done. That's where the 140 came from, that has been contributed by the township in both land acquisition and engineering work performed by Barry's firm, Manick and Smith. So Randy thought that, although he can't guarantee it or couldn't, that we would be kind of first in line or very close to first in line for that next grant cycle, CMAQ grant cycle in 2023. So I think you can see that based upon my letter, I'm recommending to the board that we do just that. And it's not scrap the project, as was previously suggested. It's, as Randy Pierce and I discussed, it's to delay the project, or as Barry said, shelve it we've got that work completed, and then it would be up to the road commission. They're the ones who make the grant application, not the township. These are county roads. They would make that grant application in the 2023 CMAQ grant cycle and move forward at that point in time. And quite frankly, it's my recommendation that the township do that. I think at this point in time, it would not be responsible forward when there is the likelihood that we might be able to fully fund the project with a CMAQ grant in 2023. And correct me if I'm wrong, Barry, I think you agree with that as well. But ultimately, it's the township board's decision. The township board decided to go forward with this project. They made a decision as a board. The board made a decision to fund it with the 175. In closing, I will state that in my discussions with Randy, there's some remedial work, remedial work that would need to be done if we shelve or delay the project. And that would consist of some concrete removal, some fill material being brought in, topsoil being brought in, seeding to make the site safe until additional work is actually completed. So that's all I have to say.
I just want to add one more thing to you guys. If the township did decide to move forward right now and take on the cost, there's no guarantee that we're going to get the grant money because MDOT is out of funds right now. So right now we're 7th in line if we move forward, and what they have is leftovers from projects. So they could potentially have the money, but we're 7th in line if we move forward. So now we're not guaranteed even if we move forward at this point. So, and on the road commission's defense, money is extremely tight for them. They've already backed out of a project on Ralph Road for a chip seal, I think it was. So a project in Bedford. So things are tight, and they are backing off on some of the projects in the county. So about covers it on there, Mr. Clements.
I had a question for Barry Bushman. Barry, there was going to be a portion of the land that would be potentially sellable to a neighbor based on the current engineering. Given where we are, is it your suggestion that we sit on any motion to avoid a potential problem down the road, or are we reasonably certain that that piece of property would not cause any further barrier and the township would be free and clear to move with that potential sale?
I'll answer that for Barry. We should not sell that property now because until the grant application is submitted and it's approved, I don't want to sell land off that we, for some unforeseen reason, might need. So that's my question. Barry, if you disagree, feel free to disagree, but I don't want to put this township in a position of selling land when we may need it to complete this project in 2023.
Let me add one more thing to that, Phil. If this board decided to sell that land, it's a landing strip that runs east and west. We could get roughly $30,000 for it. You could do the project today without that piece of property, but let's just say a new board doesn't want to go for the roundabout. That property as a whole right now is much more valuable in those three parcels together, as it's all C1, than it would be if we started selling off pieces. So, so go ahead, Barry.
I would only add that in answer to Mr. Clements' initial question would be that, you always want to be cautious when something hasn't been approved yet. However, having said that, as Mr. Peroni indicates, the land runs predominantly east-west. And if you wanted, or there became a strong desire to sell it, keep, say, 60 foot of right-of-way on there, and then you could dispose of the rest if it was attached to the neighboring property. But it's always, as Mr. Goldsmith indicates, it's always more conservative to if we have control of that, and should something change in the future, for whatever that might be, and you don't need to sell that, it's probably would be advisable to retain it if you could.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. In that Craig is not an electrician, as I'm not an engineer. I just wanted to confirm that my suspicion was correct. Thank you.
Ms. Tennevery, do you have any comments back there?
I do. You know me, I always have comments. Well, I don't know the legal definition between scrap and shelve, but my whole position on this is that this board, if we're not going through, has no ability to hold a future board, which we all know that come November 20th, there will be a future board, at least 2 new members. And so, I mean, I'm thinking that we let it go. We I don't know, shelve it, scrap it, whatever. But in 2023, there'll be plenty of time in 21, 22 to see what the state's economy is, to see what MDOT has in terms of these grants, or CMAQ, or whoever it is. And then the future board can move and make that decision. But you know, I'm not saying that we do anything with the land. I'm not interested in, as a board member right now, in selling off any part of it at this point. I don't think that it is, it's an asset. It's not costing us any money at this point. So, but I don't think that we can encumber a future board. So to me, if we're making a motion tonight, then, and we have to let the grant people know what our decision is, I think that we need to, I don't know legally what scrap and shelve is, but I'd say scrap.
I got a question for probably Barry and Phil. Something I hadn't thought of before in regards to say that we scrap and shelf and whatever on today. In 23, it is the county who has to apply for this grant, correct?
Correct.
And so, especially with all the way that things were perceived or whatever between who approached who and all that kind of nonsense for this initial one, how does this board and the township, I guess I don't know a better term than like hold the county responsible to actually go apply for that in 23? If that, like I said, if that is the pleasure of the board this evening to shelve and scrap, then how do we hold that, or do you just kind of hope that that's what happens? Or
I'll answer that, Craig. Both parties are going to have to be willing to move forward on the roundabout. The township owns the property now. If the township doesn't want the roundabout when the new board comes, without the road commission taking the property eminent domain, they can't get the roundabout done. So they're going to have to be a partnership there with the new board.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What if the board wants to, and like, I don't know, how do you, is that something the county's already planning on doing, or have they made any?
The county wants the roundabout. They want the roundabout to happen. It's not an issue of them don't want the project. They want it to happen. It's just the circumstances have changed so much with them financially, and with MDOT being out of money, it's where we're at today. Nobody expected this to happen, with coronavirus, and things changed. So, but shelving it, scrapping it, I mean, you can call what you want, putting a project on the, the back burner until, 2030. So it doesn't really matter what the name, I would guess, but.
Yeah, I will.
I can't see on the screen, but.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is you're right. I mean, the road commission is committed to the project. It's been evident since the get-go. There's been enough discussion that I think that encouraging the road commission to participate in 2023 and file, I think that probably goes without saying. We've got a tremendous head start. We've got the property, we've got the plans, we've got everything ready to go. So there's really no reason for them not to apply, especially if essentially the project is 100% funded. Makes no sense really not to. At the same time, you don't really need to say scrap or shelve as much as the fact that if you're not going to participate and the road commission doesn't have the extra money, they're just going to notify SEMCOG that because financially they're not able to commit at this time, the SEMCOG will acknowledge that and just move on. Like Paul had said earlier, probably most of the commitment is out already this year, and the chances of getting it funded at this point due to these delays probably is not going to happen anyway. So, if you just make a motion not to commit your funds, I think that pretty much handles it.
And to close that loop, Mr. Supervisor, Nancy's right and you're right. Nancy's right from the standpoint that this will be a board decision in 2023. 100% correct. You are also right that the board would have to participate, even though these are county roads and even though the grant application would be made by the road commission, the township board would have to make a decision to cooperate because the township owns the land and the land is necessary for this project. So everybody's right, including Barry, who says make a motion to not fund the project, notify the appropriate parties, and we wait.
And in the end, if all goes correct, with the new grant application, we'll save money. Just delayed. Ms. Tidbury?
I'd like to make a motion that we not fund the project. We contact the necessary agencies and commissions, and that's it.
Support.
Okay, motion and supported by Mr. Clements. Discussion? I just want to thank the board and Barry and Phil for all your hard work in this. There was a lot of effort put to get us to this point. Unfortunately, things have changed, and we'll have to put it on the shelf, and it is what it is. Things change. So, okay. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Tinneberry?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Ms. Janzasek?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Okay, up next is comments from the public. Comments limited to 5 minutes for each individual.
While we're waiting for that, Nancy, when
What?
we were on,
I'm talking.
I know,
Who's taking Randy's place?
waiting for public.
Who's taking Randy's place?
Andy, Nancy, you're not muted.
I want to know before Barry leaves. Okay, I'll call you. Okay.
When I was saying about Ida Township, was I saying Strasburg or was I saying Rauch?
Rauk.
Okay.
I thought you said Rauk.
Yeah.
Rauk is the dividing line.
Okay. When Mr. Peroni was in that last one was saying Rauch Road, I was like, was I saying that wrong? Okay, good.
I thought that's what you said. I don't think you said Strasburg.
I did. I said it right.
There's Lamar. Go ahead, Lamar. State your name and address.
Yeah, Lamar here again. 3254 Deer Creek Drive. Two questions with the HVAC contracting, the electrical contract. Are they in the budget, or do you have to amend the budget to put these in the queue? I recall vividly the Voss electrical people giving us at the board level, and I was there, a long song and dance about how great they were. How they gave us the original proposal, including the type of fixtures and all of the associated components. Why aren't they paying for this fix? That's just my question. And lastly, do not sell the property that you bought for the roundabout. And principally, if you build a roundabout and you cut it off, that is no access to either Jackman Road or any other way, you may end up having a taking. And you would not only have to give back the money, but you may have to give back more than what you got for it. So it would be pound foolish and a dollar wise not to do that. I'll hang up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Go ahead with the name and address.
Hello, Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. Mr. Matra, you said Strasburg. Nancy, knowing you go over the bills and are on planning, I'm still trying to find out why Mulch King was paid when they weren't in compliance. And can you clarify their new service that they're serving the entire county? Also, Nancy, thank you for your insight with the roundabout. Given the information in the FOIA, there's some differences and discrepancies in the price estimates and exactly who started it and the dates and et cetera, So I don't want to call anybody a liar, but there's certainly something that's not right for that. Again, I ask that the word crew be clarified since we have used youth groups in the past, and I think that we need to know exactly who he is using. Number 3, now that we're done with the roundabout, can we get some final numbers for the cost that we spent on engineering and legal? Because it certainly isn't going to be a cheaper project in the future. It is only going to be more expensive. And if the road commission is going to help take care of that, they're going to have to be and should be allowed a split in the sale of that property if that happens, any part of it. Lastly, I want to make a comment. At the last meeting, an open term was used, treasurer, and it was used in talking of the fire department improvements. That was a blatant pointing of fingers when the board, as you know, according to our supervisor, says the whole board always makes all the decisions. Then you made a comment, the supervisor did, that he was going to revamp the maintenance department. So I guess that is an exception to the whole board. Oh, wait, that's right. There was the roundabout property purchase, and the supervisor signed the papers first, but then that got all twisted and untwisted with our legal. And then who fixed the contract? Who fired the contract company when the roof caved in at District 1? It wasn't a fire department member. It was our supervisor. So something's not right here within this township and how things are being handled and run. There isn't transparency. We're talking, I've been reading some of this stuff from the roundabout, and it is awful and deplorable what has been going on and what we haven't been told about. So I'm just kind of concerned, and hopefully we can get some stuff cleaned up here come November, so that we can find out exactly what's going on, that we can get into our budgets, that we don't have people usurping elected officials in a dictatorship to manage and manhandle all the properties and all the jobs that are within this township. So slander is not a good thing to do to your employees. So you need to also learn how to treat everybody equally and without having any special treatments for special departments there at the township. I thank you, and you guys all have a good week.
Thank you. Have a great night, Gail. Okay, so moving on. Any more comments from the public? Okay. Okay. Comments from board members? Ms. Tinneberg?
Well, I did have all kudos tonight, but I have a couple things with regard to information from the callers. I'd like to know about the Mulch King too. There was an email back and forth from board members, and I sent back my response. I too agree that if Mulch King has outstanding non-compliance, then we need to do something. We can't, every single person that is non-compliant needs to, there needs to be some compliance before we allow them to move forward, or before we continue with so I'd like to hear from the building inspector regarding the shed that didn't have any permit, if that's all the case. But see, this is the problem when you don't have accurate information coming from the employees that are associated with this, then, how can we make decisions? So I'm a little upset about the Mulch King too. I'm happy that it's there. I'm not opposed to the business, but I am opposed to businesses moving forward without complying and meeting all the requirements that everyone else does. So that's number one.
Can I comment to that one?
Oh, sure, okay.
So the board wanted Mulch King to progress, move forward. And that's what they're doing. They're working with Jacobs Architect and the Planning Commission, and they're moving forward. So they're not going to change everything they're doing overnight. They are moving forward. And that's what the board wanted to make sure, that they are working with Jacobs Architect. They are doing that. At that point, we can't hold payment back. So that was what the board kind of, we were told, hey, as long as they're moving forward, they're working with Jacobs, they're going to change their site plan, stuff like that. And they're working, with the building inspector as well, with the building. So.
Well, I know how that goes. Sometimes you can say you're moving forward and it takes 3 years to move forward in compliance. Is there a legal reason we can't withhold payment?
Well, we have a contract with them, but
their contract says they have a part of that contract too.
Keep in mind, you're working with, the township. He's going through the proper channels with planning to get on the board agenda so they can approve what the changes will be. But he's working with Jacobs Architect right now in doing that.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that I don't think it's going fast enough. I, as a board member, do not maybe approve of the way it's being slowed down. So that's just my comment. This is board comment, so I'm just making my comment. My other comment has to do with the caller who talked about a water slush fund. There's no such thing as a water slush fund. I think that the treasurer at some point may want to speak to that. It's a negative term that I guess, people have used over the years, but it does not apply to governmental finance. It doesn't apply to governmental funding. There is no slush fund. There is a water fund for maintenance and repair, operation and maintenance, and that money is allowed to be spent in ways to improve and make changes to the water fund or the water lines. And so I take issue with the reference to a slush fund, because as we see in the media today and all over our country, and it just breaks my heart to think that people use words to disrupt, just like Kojo was saying, we need to unite in this country. We need to support one another. And I can guarantee, having been in this business, government business for nearly 30 years now, that I have never seen money misspent or held in a slush fund or any such manner of not being appropriately correct with the money taxpayers' money that is handled. So just again, this is board comments, so I'm making my comments. And then, let's see. Wait a minute. Oh, I guess I'm on to the applause. I'd like to applaud Trudy for, I've been here for 8 years now as a trustee, and I am thankful, very thankful. You can't imagine, this has made my day, that we had a budget adjustment before we spent the money. It just sends me over the top. And also, I'd like to applaud Paul. I've waited for a long time for the contracts to be bid out as a current board member. I appreciate that, that we had several bids tonight for township business for our buildings. And I'm very thankful for that. I'm feeling like on my way out here, I'm getting all the things I've ever hoped and prayed for. So. And then lastly, I applaud the political candidates that were running for office on August 4th and making my day by driving down the road and seeing the signs all collected in a very a rapid manner. Sometimes they are out there for weeks and weeks, and I am totally against sign pollution. And when I ran, I didn't have signs. And so I'm thankful that the signs have been cleaned up and we don't have to look down the road and see all these signs. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Judy. Mr. Montrose?
Yeah, I want to, pretty much all I have is applause from tonight as well, to commend Trudy for the same thing, to echo what Nancy was saying. I think I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see what fund and everything, where everything's going, the adjustments made. I'd love for this board to maybe have a more discussion in the future about Paul's idea. He's mentioned before about maybe having POs if there's something going over, when we have a new financial director. So echoing Nancy's comment to Trudy, I was also very pleased with that. Same thing with the roundabout, just to commend this board for being fiscally responsible in that situation and choosing not to overextend ourselves. I think that's something that's been, like what Paul said, is a lot of work went into it, but to make the right decision on how to move forward with that is commendable. That's all I got.
Okay. Mr. Clements?
Well, I wasn't going to say anything about Trudy, but I feel kind of left out, so I will. No, just very short. The financials in this week's package were really well done. Thank you very much. It's noticeable and much appreciated. I did have a first really good conversation with Krista today. She's been treasurer now for a few weeks, and I just wanted to say how much I appreciate what she's doing in that department. The update was very thorough. I don't think there's ever been any question as to whether she knew what she was doing. But it's exciting to see kind of that energy there. And thank you for making time to kind of catch me up on what you're doing. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Very good. Ms. Janzek?
Well, I wasn't gonna say anything either, but thank you, TC, for your comments. And Trudy, again, you did wonderful with the election and stuff, and with the board adjustment for the budget. It was appreciated. That's all.
Okay. Ms. Hirschberger?
I just have a couple things. I want to let the voters know that there are multiple applications that are being sent out by different organizations, and to please call the township hall and speak to one of us in the clerk's department. My number is 734-224-7320, and just check with us before you send in that application. Unfortunately, we're getting 2 to 3 duplicates for people because they get this application, they didn't realize they filled out a dual, so then we had the dual, now we're getting another one, and it's just causing sometimes double to triple work for us to check all these extra applications. So just give us a call. It would be quicker to give us a call and ask than for you to waste the time sending another application. Newsletter articles are due next Wednesday, August 26th. So if you don't have yours in and you still want to submit one, you have a week's time. Krista, Rick, and I did do an interview for a finance manager. We really liked this gentleman. He was very impressive, and I believe we're going to bring him to the board, the next board meeting. You can ask him questions. Well, hopefully we can get him on Teams, but I think this might be a good fit for the township. And his salary is in the range that we are trying to keep with. So I wanted to let everyone know about that. I also wanted to thank the treasurer's department. That window has so much business, and when we had this election going on, they were running back and forth just as much as the clerk's department was. They helped us out immensely. So I just want to give Krista and her team kudos for all the work they did during the election. I greatly appreciate it. She doesn't even know how much I appreciated that. So thank you. That's all.
Okay. So one of the callers' comments was about the fire station last meeting. I do apologize to the current treasurer, because when I was talking about how a few of the board members kept asking the last treasurer, hey, what is the plan going to be for financing for the fire department? It got to the last minute, and a resignation happened, and Krista swiftly took it over and actually got us in a better position with it. So I apologize for the miscommunication there, but you're doing a great job. And I know just from watching across the hall, it was a madhouse the last couple of months. You had 5-6 cars in that drive-through constantly. So it was very busy, and you guys seem like you worked very well. I know the other departments are appreciating the window as well, and everybody's working well together. I just wanted to bring up something that I've been working on for a little bit. I kind of did my own little study with maintenance with some of the cemeteries that we're using. I've talked to Trudy quite a bit about this. So basically, our cemeteries right now, to maintenance them and mow them, is taking a lot of time, a lot of man hours. So it takes 3 guys, 8 hours every week and a half to mow one of them. And so roughly the wages is around, not including the 4th cemetery, the newest cemetery, about $15,000 a year in wages, and just that season. Biggest problem is cutting around the graves. They got the fence line. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but here's just one of the ideas that possibly, that's, being used. It's where some landscaping is being done around some of the graves. And I know Mr. Hirschberger's got some comments on it. There's ordinances in place, but I'd like to let the Green Initiatives Committee work with Trudy and Mr. Pryor, who sits on as a liaison, come up with some different ways how we can become green in those areas. Because like I said, a lot of the time is trim. These guys spend all day trimming it. So if we could figure out ways to make stoned areas with stone, I think we could save a lot of time, and it would pay for itself within a few years, I think. So anyways, we're going to be looking at that, working with Trudy and get some ideas. So if anybody has any, let myself or Trudy or Al know. I was appointed by the Lake Erie Transit Committee to serve on the Lake Erie Transit Board. So I'm the new representative on the Lake Erie Transit Board. I want to say that the new Police Explorer is in. We'll have the first one in the county of the new Explorer. So after the Sheriff's Department call today, Sergeant Moody, basically our car is going to be the first one Herkimer's working on in the county. So it needs to get started on right away. We're actually, I think, Trudy, do we have 2 or 3 cars on loan right now from the Sheriff's Department?
Just one right now.
I think it's 2. That's what Sergeant Moody said today. There was 2.
I think we only have 1 because they're low on cars all over the county right now. Okay. They're short.
Well, maybe he's wrong. He told us he had 2 today, but so anyways, so a lot of the parts doesn't sound like they're going to fit. So our car will be the first one to go through Herkimer's and really see what fits and what doesn't fit. And then we'll be able to get a solid quote from, or a solid price of what it's going to cost. Might be higher, might be lower. And then if we have to do a budget adjustment for the next 3 vehicles, we can do that. But that's moving to Herkimer's now so they can get started so we can get a car back in service. So, other than that, things are moving along. Go ahead, Ms. Esper. Yeah, I know you want to talk about ordinances and stuff, so.
I just wanted to say that during our budgets, we did put the extra money in there for fitting of the cars because we were told ahead of time that the equipment was not going to work. So I just wanted to mention that. And also, as far as the cemeteries in our ordinance that we have, we wouldn't be able to do stone like that. They'll have to think of something else to do. I know a lot of people would be angry to lose the grass, but our own ordinance says that sod, other than earth or sod, everything else is prohibited.
Yeah, so we would have to change the ordinance if the board wanted to do something. Because I'm going to tell you something, maintenance on all of our properties and all the parks and all the pocket parks that we have in all these subdivisions, it is extremely time consuming and it's a lot of work. So in my opinion, we have to get creative and figure out ideas on how we can make less work in these pocket parks, possibly the cemeteries. And we might not be able to, but it's just something I'd like the board to at least take a look at.
The cemeteries are going to be a little harder because people own those graves.
Mm-hmm.
So we have thousands of people that have this ordinance. And so to just go, oh, never mind, we're going to get rid of the grass is going to really upset a lot of people. So we have to be mindful of how they feel too.
Yeah, and maybe it's just the fence lines, and a lot of the properties in the backs of them. There's just a lot of property that you can look at, but like I said, just some discussions need to be had and how we can get creative with these properties, and maybe it's next year we take a harder look at it, but so yeah. Anybody, Ms. Tinberry, you had a question?
Just to comment on that, a lot of townships bid out the cemetery mowing too. So, I mean, you could look to see what those bids might come in at. Actually, I wanted to end on a happy note, but I don't think this is going to make everybody happy. I'm wanting to know when we're done with this virtual business and when we're getting back into having live meetings. You all look so blurry. I want to see your happy, cheerful faces. So what's the reason? What's the holdup?
I don't have the answer at the moment. Things haven't changed since we made the, for the most part, since we've gone to virtual. If anything, it's gone backwards. So, I mean.
What's gone backwards?
Well, when, it's gone from level 5 to 4, I think. And, like I said, the governor's orders, things haven't changed a ton from the last, couple months. I don't think Chief Massingill's still on the phone, but we can look into it.
Well, other townships are meeting, and I think our boardroom is big enough to do the social distancing. We could wear masks. I just don't understand why that other townships are not violating the governor's orders. They're meeting. So just my desire.
I was going to say, I think Phil could probably chime in this, but I think the last governor's order still says 10 people and we would have to let the public in. That's the last thing I knew, unless Phil wants to chime in somewhere.
Well, you're right, Trudy. That's the obstacle that we have, that if we have more than 10 individuals at a meeting, that we would potentially, we would be violating the last order that's in place now. We can check on that and to see if that's changed. I don't think it has.
Well, that first come, first serve, and I can tell you we had more meetings with less than 10 people in the audience than more. So It's first come, first serve, 10 people. It's what they do in stores.
Well, it would be 10 people total, including the board members and the support staff. So we'd have to take that into consideration.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any further comments? Okay. Seeing none, we stand adjourned.